today, this is strange because Bill Hall is a former president of the Tri-Village Club. He's also president of Melissa's house. And so with us today, we're going to find out about Melissa's house. And Bill is out of town, and Executive Director Jenny Schoenberg is here. So with that, Bill, take it over.
Thank you, Jack. Can everyone hear me okay or see me all right? I'll take that as a yes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jack, for introducing Melissa's house to the right folks and putting us on your agenda. And as Jack mentioned, I'm a member of Tri-Village Rotary. We're the AM club in Arlington, the other Arlington club. We also have Grandview and Marble Cliff. And we too were told we can't meet any longer in our longtime meeting space at OSU Golf Course. And we had our first hybrid meeting such as this last week at our new home at Cohatch on Lane Avenue, which worked out great. So I want to thank Scott for all the difficulties of making these hybrid meetings work and as we go through this. So thank you, and thanks for having me. I wanted to briefly introduce, I have two colleagues here from Melissa's House Board, Jenny Schoening, and if we're on a speaker view, you might not be able to see Jenny, and Pamela Romanoff, who is also a board member. Thanks for having us. I'm going to now share my screen if it is set up to do so. It looks like it is. So where is, I'm going to go to screen. There we go. And there we go. Okay. I trust and hope everyone can see my screen. So what is Melissa's House? So we're a nonprofit here in Central Ohio. And we work in the mental health community. I was involved with Melissa's House as a supporter for several years, thanks to our good friends, the Schoenings, Jenny Schoening being on this on our board as well. And that turned into a much closer relationship with the organization when I had a son go through some very difficult times with depression, which caused a lot of complications in his life, in his marriage and his career plans and so forth. And then around 2017 or so, Jenny and I were asked to join the board, and Pamela joined just last year. So she's recently a new member. So what do we do? So Melissa's House, this is our mission statement. Our goal is to restore the living spaces where adults with mental illness are living today, to help them have a better environment for recovery, to improve the experience for the people that visit them, their family and friends, and who work there. The whole idea is to add dimension and warmth, provide opportunities for reflection, and very importantly, opportunities for socialization. And my initial reaction to this when I heard about it, frankly, it sounded like renovation and aesthetic. What I soon came to learn is just how critical, very essential that this is to actual recovery and commitments to recovery, and how important it is to those folks living with mental illnesses. So Melissa's House is named after Melissa Goldberg, founded by her parents, Nate and Elaine Goldberg. And Melissa died at a young age due to complications of severe mental illness. And it was the Goldbergs' experiences with her living in various homes and places for her recovery that were so disappointing. They said there is a need for residential treatment facilities that actually have designs and spaces that encourage recovery. This is kind of documented in some fact that the spaces, the appropriate environment leads to better recovery circumstances. And initially, the Goldbergs' mission was to buy a home and then renovate it and operate it for, I don't know the number of residences, the plan, but 8 to 12 residences. Unfortunately, the homes that they identified and tried to buy as they were getting permitted or seeking permit or permission to operate a home like that, the not in my backyard syndrome foiled that, and they're unable to successfully or in an amicable way acquire those homes. So they actually changed their mission, and I think it was a blessing in disguise. What they chose to do at that time was, instead of buying and operating a home with the proper design, they said, let's take our money and go to the many existing homes, either privately held or held by organizations, and improve them. And by doing so, we'll touch so many more lives. So what I want to do is I want to share a video with you here. And in this video, it's narrated by Nate and Elaine, Melissa's parents, and her brother, Billy. And it's a little dated, but it tells the story well, but it also refers to a home as though they were going to buy this home. So that part isn't the case today, but whether they had bought the home and operated it, or whether they were doing what we do today, the mission is the same. So I'd like to share this video.
There isn't a place where people with mental disabilities can live comfortably and live a life like everybody else. We don't want another family to have to live through the pain and suffering that we and so many other families are going through. She had the most compelling laugh. I mean, you didn't forget her laugh and her smile.
And she was a really good athlete, very smart. She was a very talented musician.
Everything was enjoyable about Melissa. And this was the last thing that we would have ever anticipated.
She suffered from severe mental illness.
My sister was in a facility where the only way she was able to go outside, the rule was you're allowed to go outside if you smoke. So she took up smoking.
You walk in there and feel defeated immediately.
When your surroundings are negative, it's very easy to be negative yourself.
It's hard to go to sleep at night envisioning that your daughter is in this place you just walked out of and left her. She ultimately died at Ohio State in the psych ward in 2006.
Our vision for Melissa's house is to create an environment for individuals with mental illness to call home.
Warm, loving, that they can hardly wait to come home to it.
I think we all have a choice of what kind of legacy we want to leave our community. It would mean a lot to her that she will make a difference.
Mental illness touches everybody's life somewhere, somehow. And we can't go under a rock anymore. We have to become proactive.
If you want to be a part of where hope lives, get on board.
Let's help give hope that they are not a mental illness. You are so much more. You are Melissa Goldberg.
So that's our story. That's our origin story, how we got started. As mentioned in the video, 1 in 4 adults will experience mental health or mental illnesses every year. Anything from short-term acute events to much more difficult and complex mental health issues. In Central Ohio, there are over 1,700 residences, either privately owned or owned by organizations for the purpose of providing places of care. And the problem is funding is almost never available to create the environments we're talking about. To the contrary, what we learned and were told by managers, home managers or building managers, is they intentionally will design industrial type surfaces and environments with browns and dark colors because they wear well and won't show the wear and tear, which is exactly counter to what is now very well understood design philosophy to support these individuals in their recovery. So the challenge, of course, is funding. They don't have much funding. Funding's hard to come by, and they will prioritize it towards direct services, psychological services, psychiatry services, or other programming they have, or the physical security of these facilities. So I think I mentioned to you that there is research documentation on the correlation of the environment to recovery. One of which is the Department of Veteran Affairs. They have a new mental health design guide. They cite the research and make a statement of their guidelines for designing their mental health care areas. Another great reference point I'd like to share is something everyone here is familiar with. Nationwide Children's Hospital Behavioral Health Pavilion. One of the members of Tri-Village Rotary works for Nationwide, and she was presenting to our club about their building master plans and all the development that's going there. And she dwelled on the Behavioral Health Pavilion in a way that sounded very much like when I give these presentations about the importance of design. So I wanted to share this. Now, Melissa's house had nothing to do with this, but from the beginning, from the white sheet of paper, in the very beginning, it was the deliberate and express goal to create spaces like we're talking about, access to daylight, access to the exterior if it's not a safety issue, colors, common spaces where people can meet and socialize. And I wanted to share this simply because if the premier behavioral health pavilion in the country made it a priority, then that's about the best proof statement I could offer to you. I don't know if anyone saw it earlier this week. There was an extended story on the Behavioral Health Pavilion on the national news, one of the morning news shows. I think it was CBS this morning. Anyway, so that's what we do and why. How do we do it? We find qualified housing. Jenny Schoening on the call, it's one of her roles. She keeps relationships with these organizations like National Church Residences, YW, Community Housing Network, Netcare Access, NAMI of Ohio. We identify needs, and then we get into a design process with them. So we will partner, we have partners, design partners and contractors, and we'll go through a design process, making sure that all the potential money and funds are applied to exactly our mission. And we go through that work, and that's an important step because we bring resources to the table that they don't have or don't have time to acquire or the money to acquire. Then we go through the design process, we price it. We actually then write a grant and award the money to them, but then we co-project management. And we stay close to it because project management time is also something that most of these organizations don't have. So we can bring project management time and expertise, but we have to work with them. They have to be involved. And then we complete the work. So that's a very simplified view of our process. So what I want to do is turn this over to Jenny. And Jenny, I'll drive the slides. Feel free to give your background if you'd like. And Jenny's going to take us through a couple of our projects, what we did.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks. So my name's Jenny, and I have been involved with Melissa's house for almost 10 years. And in the initial, my initial involvement was just at the event, helping out at the event. But I got involved because senior year of high school, my son was hospitalized and diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, the same disease that Melissa Goldberg was diagnosed with. And I, as Bill talked about earlier, I had seen a news segment about Melissa's house and the neighbors fighting the building of a place for these people to recover. And you know, he'd just gotten out of the hospital, and I was, of course, devastated. I got online and I donated to Melissa's house and made a comment about, well, I guess this is the life and the journey we're going to have with my son, the stigma and the discrimination. And Elaine Goldberg called me, and it was 10:30 at night, and she talked to me for for about an hour. And I tell that story because I want you to know how compassionate and caring the people were or are that founded Melissa's House, and how much they care about people like my son and their recovery. So the first project we're going to talk about is Netcare Access. Now, Netcare Access is Franklin County's 24-hour mental health and substance abuse crisis center. And it is a place you might go if you are feeling like you're in a mental health crisis, but you don't want to go to the emergency room or a psychiatric unit. It's a voluntary place you would go, you know, for a few days. And that is the crisis stabilization unit. We've granted almost $140,000 to Netcare Access. And our work is in two places, the crisis stabilization unit and Miles House. And Miles House is where you would go after you stayed at the crisis stabilization unit for a few days. You can continue your recovery at Miles House. And Miles House is as you can imagine on the hilltop, an old house that was very dark, dated, drab, as Bill mentioned earlier, you know, drab and old. And we basically there just took out all the furniture. We painted, we redid the kitchen, we put in bright furniture, and continue the work. In fact, last week they called to see if we could continue updating the areas there. And the executive director at Netcare tells us that people really enjoy staying there, that they don't want to leave after their 2 or 3 weeks, which is, you know, just really heartwarming. And at the CSU, we have done a lot of the common spaces. We'll show you the picture of the outdoor area and garden. And we've also done the recreation centers and more, all at the CSU unit. And so our impact there is that we've benefited more than, you know, 3,200 individuals. And also, which we're very proud of, we've improved the working conditions, environmental impact for the 35 staff members that work there. As you can imagine, that is a very stressful job to be in, to work in a crisis unit. And we've saved Netcare 30% of their annual expenses because we've taken on these projects. Okay, Bill? Okay, so this is the outdoors. Bill, we talked about, you know, going outside is not just, you know, you need to get out of the chaos maybe of an indoor space with a lot of people recovering from a mental illness. And this was their outdoor space. And as you can see, you know, besides getting some fresh air, not really anywhere you would want to spend any amount of time. Okay, Bill? So what we did was we created Melissa's Healing Garden. And as you can see, we added lots of plants and shrubbery and benches, places to gather, and a labyrinth, which we are told is used extensively. You know, it could be used to soothe an agitated patient that just, you know, needs to get outside and calm down. And it's also been used for staff to decompress after a stressful situation. And then, as you can see at the bottom here, we redid a space that was behind that mural was an open netting space used for storage. So we walled that off with a beautiful mural and created a rec center, a recreational area, did flooring, paint, and added furniture and recreation stuff. Okay, Bill. And then as we told you in the beginning, Melissa's House was going to be a supported, you know, independent but supported housing space for 10 to 12 people. And when we took the different direction, one of our first projects was Briggsdale Apartments, which is on the south side of, or southwest side of Columbus. And it's 35 studio apartments. So they're independent studio apartments, but have shared community spaces, and they have supported housing in that, you know, their caseworker comes there, they have therapists, they have clinical staff on site. So we granted them $30,000 and to redo some of the community spaces. Okay. So as you can see here, and the one of the residents says, Fletcher says, you know, I remember when I first came here, everything was brown and basic, as we told you. That was done on purpose. It was very depressing. People weren't going in those rooms, the community spaces. Everything is brighter now, more lively. I see a lot more participation now, people associating with each other. And that is one of the outcomes that we loved as well, is that we are bringing people out of their apartments. And because loneliness is a real, you know, it has a starring role, I say, in mental illness. If you're sick, you tend to isolate yourself. You know, you feel judged, you feel less competent, less important than other people. So to come outside and really have a community, you know, everyone needs a community, everyone needs a tribe, and making these spaces worth going to is something that we really take pride in. So as you can see in this instance, the kitchen before is very dated and dark. And we've added lighting and bright white walls and art and also new appliances and flooring. Okay. And then again, the beautiful picture on the left of black furniture, brown walls, and a black carpet. We changed to the after is just beautiful furniture, colorful rugs, artwork, a gathering table where they can sit and share a meal if they want, and of course lighting and you know, a place you would want to stay. Okay, that's it.
Thanks, Jenny. So how do we fund our work? We have a primary fundraiser and are working hard on creating more different sources of fundraising. In 2019, as you can see, our main event, which I'll mention a little more in a second, was almost 3/4 of our revenue. Small number of grants, and then other income sources are, you know, end of year giving, Giving Tuesday, Big Give, or other creative initiatives we might come up with. This has an obvious risk factor built into it, and that is if your main fundraiser doesn't produce or something goes wrong, we're at risk. Well, guess what happened in 2020? In 2020, COVID struck, and our fundraiser produced about half. Now, there's a difference here. Actually, the total dollars represented by these two donuts are about the same. We're down 3 or 4 points, I think, maybe 5 in 2020, but we had to choose a different fundraiser, and some last minute creative thinking, a lot of hard work actually produced a nice fundraising campaign for us. But we worked harder on finding and earning grants and on some of those other fundraising channels. So we'll be back at it in 2021 with our main event. And this is our main event. It's called Play for Melissa's House and the Dinner for Hope. It's in September. And it is a golf outing, but it's much more than that. In fact, the evening event and dinner is actually the main feature. We have probably half the attendees in the evening are attending just for the dinner. But our goal is 4 things. Awareness. We want to help continue the awareness about mental health. And this year, Pamela, who's on this call, was able to secure a commitment from Akia Red. She's going to be our speaker. Akia is the wife of Michael Red, former OSU basketball player. And because of her own rather dramatic experiences with her personal mental illness, she's become an advocate. So she writes and speaks and counsels on on mental health issues and mental illness. And so she's going to speak to our group. We want to recognize people that do great things in the community for mental health. And we have a Hope for Healing Award. We did not have a 2020 recipient. We had chosen a person, but because our event was canceled, we are going to announce that winner this year. And since we haven't announced it to the public, I'm not telling you who that is. But we want to recognize people doing great work. We want to express appreciation to all of our donors at this event. And of course, there's fundraising. So we have silent auctions and live auctions and so forth. So it's really a fabulous event. Available today. So any one of you individually or as a group would like to help sponsor our event, I welcome the opportunity to talk to you about that. So let me kind of close with a testimonial again. For my work and the hard work we put in at Melissa's house, there's nothing more rewarding than the feedback we get from the residents, right? That's why we do this. And it's a somewhat intangible result. You can't measure quantitatively someone's happiness, but you can see it happen, and hearing their words makes a big difference. So I had some polled text, a couple polled quotes. At times when dying looked so much easier than living, people like you came into my life and gave me hope in humanity. Thank you for being in my life. And I want to close with another video, and the voice you're going to hear are the words of Patricia, who is a resident, or was a resident at one of the homes where we did some work.
Coming out of the hospital, I felt like this was the only place that was available to me. I felt like I was in an institute, and you feel that dreary atmosphere, that Great Depression, where you feel like you're walking through the dark. When I came in here, I hated living. I didn't want to live. Now, I don't have to accept that darkness. We need life. We need light. We need change. We come in the doors and you've got color. Green is life. And you've got that sense inside, I can do this. Melissa's house is phenomenal. Their compassion, it has made a big difference. There's life here now. There's hope. Thank you for giving hope to the hopeless.
So that's our story. We always welcome anyone to join us in our mission, either through donations. We're always looking for good board members, volunteer time, corporate in-kind donations or corporate sponsorships, in-kind donations of the type of services or materials that we use in our projects. All of that is welcome. This is our current executive board and our sustaining board. Elaine Goldberg, one of the co-founders, is still actively involved on our sustaining board. Her husband, Nate, co-founder, unfortunately passed away in December, and we miss Nate very much. But that's all I have. Thank you for having us today, and Pamela, Jenny, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody in the room have a question? And then we'll
Zoomers. Anybody in the room for Bill or Jenny? Anybody? Steve?
Yeah, Bill, how many persons can maybe I missed it, but how many persons can Melissa's house actually handle, and how does that work?
Yeah, so Bill, I don't know if you heard the question, but Steve was asking how many members or how many houses or homes have you been working with through Melissa's house?
Yeah, so since we changed our mission to what it is, we've done 11 projects similar to the ones that we shared with you. And I don't know if that was the entire question or the answer to the entire question, but that's what I caught.
So 11 projects. And
how many persons do you think that impacted?
Oh gosh. Well, as Jenny showed, that Netcare Access in their presentation to us, because they presented to our board earlier this year as an update, just they claim 3,200 people, and that would be measured as the number of people they've had in the crisis stabilization unit and their step down home, Miles House. So I wish I had a better number. That would be important for me to know. But it's, I don't know if Jenny, if you would have a better estimate.
Well, that would be a great number to exactly know. But for instance, we're doing right now another National Church Residents supported housing that has 100 residents. So that would be 100. And then, so each of their facilities is about 100, and we're redoing their community spaces. And we are going, we're starting a new kind of, to me, new direction a little bit, and working with homes, group homes that would, you know, less people, so 5 or 10 people like the original house, but we're going to try to do smaller projects, because those group home owners, unlike a big facility, they really don't have funding for to redo or paint or new furniture. They aren't paid enough to do any of that. So we're trying to do some of that as well.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Any questions from anybody online? Any of the Zoomers have questions for Bill or Jenny?
Okay.
So it says you mentioned the not in my backyard hurdle. To what extent, if any, is interactions with law enforcement another hurdle? And how does your organization advocate for people with mental illness in those interactions with law enforcement? We, as Melissa's house, do not, you know, get involved with that. I, however, I do a lot. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be on a family panel crisis intervention training at the police academy. So I definitely advocate to the law enforcement about, because it cannot always be a positive interaction if the police officers don't know how to de-escalate someone in a mental health crisis. So that's the advocacy part, that we go and try to tell them what it's like to be a family member, and of course there are also people with lived experience that talk to them as well. So it is a hurdle, but one that we see very, as I do as a parent, the tide is turning, you know, and hopefully there won't be a need for law enforcement to be involved in every interaction. It will be more of a mobile crisis unit that actually Netcare has started, where maybe a paramedic and a social worker therapist come out instead of law enforcement.
All right, well, Bill and Jenny, we applaud your efforts and wish you continued success as you continue to reach out and try to support the mental health community here in Central Ohio. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And making this happen for us. Thank you.
welcome.
Hey, I want to thank you again for joining today. Remind you that next week we will be off in honor of Memorial Day. Our next meeting will be via Zoom and feature regional manager of the sheet stores. I'm sure you're seeing these pop up all over Central Ohio. So we'll see you then. And I want to say thanks to Susan and the entire staff at the Hofbrau House today. Prost. Prost. All right. We are adjourned.